Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Robertson. For this episode, I'm joined by Vito Gregoli, whose album Wild Monsoon is a partnership with Ricky Kay. Ricky won his second Grammy recently for Divine Tides with Stuart Copeland, and both Ricky and Vito are highly respected composers and musicians in the new world sphere. This new album is wonderful. It's a musical collaboration that they talk about being many years in the making. There's a sense of cinematic music here, and grooves and innovations, and just a proper eclectic collection of musicians and genres. It was recorded at Revolution Studios in Bangalore in India, and also Sound Painter Studio in Los Angeles. And everything is produced, composed, performed, recorded by Vito Gregoli and Ricky Kay, with input from various other musicians. I'm looking forward to my conversation with Vito, and I hope you enjoy listening in. Hi, Vito.
Good morning, or good evening in your case.
Yeah, good evening here. Fabulous. Well, thank you for joining me for this conversation for Harmonious World.
My pleasure.
So we're going to talk about Wild Monsoon, but I also want to talk about your background and also how you and Ricky got together, you know, how this came about, because it's a fascinating mixture of genres and styles and everything. So why don't you start with telling me how you met Ricky?
I think it's about 2011 or 12. He came out with his first album that he was trying to get some Grammy attention with. He came out to LA, and a mutual friend who's a PR person arranged a meeting for all the local people, and I was invited. And it was a very nice evening, and I didn't really talk to Ricky until the end of the night. And then we surprisingly found that we had a huge amount in common, despite the fact he lives on the other side of the world, despite the fact that he's like 25 years younger than me. We just found a lot of common ground, and we kept in touch. And then in 2013, we both showed up in New Orleans for the Zone Music Reporter Awards, which is the New Age music community's version of the Grammys. So the whole community gets together and we all compete for various prizes, awards rather. And Ricky and I were both up for, I think, Best Global Album. And we ended up sitting together. And through the whole time, we kept nudging each other, going, "Oh, you're going to win." And he goes, "No, you're going to win." And all the suspense came to finally the Feast of Resistance was neither of us won. But it was a good moment because we both knew that we liked the other person's album tremendously, and we respected each other's abilities. So we started talking about working on something. And then in 2015, Ricky had done a project in India that was for India release only with a bunch of ohms chanting. And that's something that I've always wanted to do. So when he played it for me, I said, can we kind of redo that and release it here? He goes, "Well, I can't be the artist because of contractual obligations, but you're welcome to use the ohms." So he loaned me his ohms. And hence Ohmland was born. And what I did with it, there are 3 22-minute pieces with the ohm chant going through. And I utilized this as an opportunity to mesh ambient chant/chant music with fingerstyle guitar. So the first piece has a classical guitar, second piece has a dobro, and the third piece has a acoustic guitar. So I kind of created a new subgenre with that. Nobody except Bruce Beckvar has done that, really. And that was super fun for us to work together. I mean, it was mostly my project, but he mixed it, he mastered it, He played some of the synths on it. So it was kind of like a test run. And then we started deciding that we were going to do something official. And we started sending each other tracks. And, the idea was that the other one would finish him and we'd kind of go back and forth with that. And the first track he sent me was so good. It was just, I went, oh, it sounds really finished to me. What can I possibly add to this? So that was an interesting conundrum, but I finally figured out a way to slant it into my arena. I wrote a bridge to it, which is always a nice way to interject something. But I used his material in creating the bridge, so it has a seamless quality, and that became the first track on the album, Gresham. And the first thing I sent him, I didn't finish it deliberately because I wanted to have more of his input. And he came back with just such wonderful changes to it that I got so super excited. And that became the second track. So on and on this goes with sending things back and forth. The exception was Mahatma, which he had released on Shanti Samsara album. No, Winds of Samsara, sorry, that he did with Wouter Kellerman. So Wouter Kellerman is doing this beautiful flute in the beginning. And I remixed it.
So two of my favorite tracks are Charade, the autumn one, and
Yes.
then Mahatma. Mahatma is really good. I don't know what genre it is, actually.
That's good. That's good.
Exactly.
My job is complete.
Absolutely. And I often talk about the fact that when I started this podcast, I kind of set up folders. So it was like going to be classical or jazz or pop, and very quickly I realized that there were too many people who didn't fit into anything or fit into two or three or, and I love that. I love the fact that, so now I've just chucked that out the window and it's just like, it's just music and it's great. It's so good to hear things that I wouldn't ordinarily, I mean, I must admit, sort of new age kind of world music, I tend to go, yeah, all right, okay. But when you sent me this, I was like, okay, I really, really like this.
Awesome. There's a lot of shifting going on in the new age field because it's such a wide umbrella, and people's perception of it tends to be fairly narrow, spa music, stuff you listen to when you get a massage.
Yeah.
But it includes, neoclassical, chant, world beat, new age, and I've been working with a lot of vocal artists. One of whom sings Badra, Kimberly Haynes, on what I've decided, actually not we, I've decided to call it new age pop because the music has a pop element, but the lyrics are about important stuff, about self-growth, connecting to the divine, whatever. In other words, not a love song.
Right.
So I've dubbed that new age pop after going through about 40 other names, trying to figure out what your best one. But right now there's actually a controversy in the community because a lot of the ambient and chant artists are seeking to separate from new age. So they've managed to get the Grammy people to change the name from new age to new age ambient and chant, which I'm not in favor for because that dilutes the brand, but
yeah,
maybe it'll work. Maybe it'll get more expensive attention. I could be wrong. It's happened before.
yeah. And I think the Grammys is a very interesting case in point because actually they try and shoehorn people into categories where actually sometimes it's difficult. And I think also people miss out because the Grammys don't quite know where to put them.
Yes, I was a couple of years ago, or a couple of years before COVID, I was on the screening committee for the New Age. And basically all we do is this New Age? And the criteria was, what is the intent behind it? So it could
Right.
be more of a global instrumentation, but if the intent is more to be, connecting your heart with something rather than just, party, then we would keep it. If it seemed like it was not, then we'd send it on to global.
Right.
But
Oh,
I'll tell
that's
you,
interesting.
the neat thing about Spotify, we all know the negatives of Spotify. They pay very low, and they tend to favor the majors, but they are moving from genres to moods. And moods, I think, will open up music for everybody because they're not stuck in one place. Someone could go looking for this mood, and it could be all kinds of genres. And stuff I do is all multi-genre. So my stuff will get more attention as well as other artists who do what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so you did this swapping tracks backwards and forwards. I love that. I love that concept. I mean, it's, that's been possible for years, but it seems to be much a sort of smoother process now.
Yeah, certainly the technology makes it much easier. I mean, there's other challenges like we're both in different programs, and he's on
Oh
a
yeah,
PC and I'm on a Mac, and so there's that challenge. But those are all surmountable challenges. I've been in my career, I've done a lot of collaborating when it comes to writing. So I'm used to the fact that you will hand your baby over to somebody, they will do something to it, and it'll come back, and it's a completely different baby. And that's good because now you could look at it fresh, go, oh, I see what we can do with this. Whereas before it's like, well, here.
yeah, yeah.
So
That's great.
collaboration can be an incredibly explosive creativity kind of activity.
Yeah, and that's wonderful, isn't it? And I think, as you say, those kind of PC Mac debates and all the rest of it, they've become slightly superfluous because there are workarounds, aren't there, with everything now?
Yeah, I mean, India is a very PC centric country. America, as far as the music community, and I think partially Europe, is very Mac centric. And you work with what you got, and what you got tends to become familiar, and you know,
Yeah, that's
to each
great.
his own.
Yeah, absolutely. How can I ask you how your lockdown was? I mean, it seems a long time ago in a way, but you know,
It's interesting because in some ways it seems like it's never ended, but it's certainly we're in a different stage. My lockdown was unusual. I mentioned my friend Kimberly Haynes, the singer who sings on Badra. Her husband had cancer for like 13 years, and he passed 2 months before COVID lockdown happened. So I had moved close by them, like 5 minutes away. And so all of 2019, I was going back and forth, helping the family. We're all very close. Brian was a dear, dear friend. And then, he passed, and there's that. And then there's COVID, and we're
yeah,
suddenly in this lockdown. And it was very fortunate because, we were already kind of a unit, supporting each other. So on that aspect, that was smooth. The other part is I had a lot of projects going on, knock wood, and I kept working through the whole lockdown pretty nonstop, including having moved essentially 4 times between 2018 and 2021. So I managed to finish the first album that I've released in 7 years, which was Song Divine, which I did with Lisa Coffey. It's basically what I was talking about, New Age pop. It's the Bhagavad Gita text made to be sung with pop music behind it.
ah, right.
So that came to fruition in an October release. And then between October and April, Ricky and I finally finished up our project just at the time where he was heading. I mean, he literally came here from the airport. We mixed the album, which is the first time we've been in the same room on this project. And then the next day, he flew out to Las Vegas to win the second Grammy with Stuart Copeland of the Police with Divine Tides. So it was pretty exciting to have that all happen in a short amount of time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's on the one hand, COVID seems like such a long time ago, and yet on the other hand, it seems like we're still wading through it.
Yes, well, it's certainly not over, but it's at least gone into a phase of some normalcy.
Yeah.
for the moment. We'll see what
Yeah.
happens in the fall.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Very good. So what does the future hold? What's next?
That's a really good question. Song Divine, the Bhagavad Gita rock opera, which is what it's been officially called, is starting to get some legs on it. There's talk about doing some digital concerts that would, go around the world. We're trying to get some big names to do it. It's essentially, if you're all familiar with this, it's a conversation between the warrior Arjuna and the god Krishna, who's pretending to be a charioteer, for those not informed. And so it's pretty much a two-hander as far as a stage thing. So it makes it much easier to put on in a concert format, but it was originally designed to be on stage. And unfortunately with COVID, theater productions are, 2 years behind. So I'm not sure when that's going to happen. I think it has to happen because it musically and textually is just so ripe for some kind of Cirque du Soleil Broadway hybrid that would be really, really cool to do. But in the meantime, we're doing this, trying to put up this concert worldwide, and hopefully that will happen, and some more things along those lines. And I've got more clients that I'm producing. As far as my original material, that's pretty much gonna have the back seat for another year or so. But you never know, things pop up. Someone will go, hey, let's do an album together. And hopefully Ricky and I will do something else. He's extremely all over the place right now. He just posted something, I think, from Frankfurt with a UN, some kind of conference. Either he's talking or he's performing or both. So following Ricky on Facebook is a little like finding Waldo. You never know where he's going to be next.
Right.
When we started this out, it was the plan, we'll do all these interviews, and he's just everywhere.
Right. Yeah.
So at some point he'll be in a room, his studio long enough to do a second project, I hope.
Very good. Excellent. Well, do keep me posted, because I'd love to interview you again for, the next project. So yeah,
I'd like to come on and talk about the Bhagavad Gita project with Lisa Coffey, my partner. That might be fun to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. Let's stay in touch on email and get a date for that.
Excellent.
Brilliant.
Pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, you too, Vito. Well, I hope you enjoyed listening to that conversation. At the start of this podcast, you heard Charade, which Vito and I discussed, and now this is Mahatma, which is the Vito remix for inclusion on Wild Monsoon. Thanks for joining me once more on Harmonious World. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and it's a great delight to bring this series of discussions with musicians and composers and writers and all sorts of people to you. Obviously, there's no point in having a podcast if people aren't listening, and I'm very grateful to my listeners for doing so. Thanks also to Joe English for composing and performing this new theme tune. So wherever you get your podcast, you can leave a review. You can share this with your friends and family, either as a link or on social media and that sort of thing. I'd be really grateful for that. Don't forget that you can subscribe now. There's a link wherever you get your podcasts. So have a great week, and please remember why I started this, which is just to try and make the world a little more harmonious. Thanks for listening to Harmonious World.